I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, December 2nd, 2019 to order. Our first order of business is Pledge Allegiance. Charlie, as is traditional, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like just to take a moment of personal privilege here. We've just come through the Thanksgiving holiday, and we in this community have very much to be thankful for. And let us please remember that there are those among us who are not quite as fortunate. If you have the opportunity to do something, pay it forward. Be kind to someone, provide someone with some resources that they might not have access to, or just be kind to somebody. I also want to, I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve with this board. Today marks the second anniversary of this group being together. I continue to be amazed by the remarkable demonstration of collegiality and cooperation with moving this town forward, and I want to thank everyone individually for your service and your willingness to work in that spirit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Item 2 is receive a check from Connecticut Water Company for the Guilford Food Bank. I'm going to ask that we defer that for a moment because Tammy is not here yet to receive it. I believe she thought it was 8:45. So, item 3, public hearing to obtain comment on the grant of a conservation easement to the Guilford Land Conservation Trust, Incorporated, for the sum of $25,000 over property known as Peddler's Park, shown as Lot 13 on Assessor's Map 72, and more particularly described in certain deed recorded in volume 113 at page 34 in the Guilford Land Records. As a way, before we open, well, the hearing is now open, there's a way of a little bit of background. As you may recall, a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, the issue of constructing a disc golf course at Peddlers garnered significant attention in the community. The end result was we decided not to move forward with it in large measure because of the fact that a significant portion of that site had been used as a dump, garbage dump, and there were concerns about disruption and what that would mean if we were to disrupt it. At the time, the Guilford Land Conservation Trust was actively engaged in those discussions, and I had subsequent conversations with the leadership who indicated an interest in obtaining an easement. So here we are 18 months later, and the Land Conservation Trust has generously offered $25,000 for said conservation easement across that property, which will allow them to continue to maintain and operate the trails that actually exist on a portion of Peddlers. So with that, are there any questions or comments from this board or from the public at this point?
It may be a little tedious, but really 3.1 summarizes the list of prohibited uses, and at the risk of, I mean, typically we try to sort of shorten these things up, but I mean, I think there's some value in pointing out the list of prohibited uses. The idea is to really keep this as in its natural state.
Correct.
And anybody who wants to see it, this will be on the website, I presume.
Correct.
And 3.1 is very useful, but basically, no disc golf course, no structures, any kind of recreational use that would involve physical infrastructure beyond natural property is essentially prohibited. No concrete, antennas, I mean, it goes on and on.
Yep.
Did I steal somebody's thunder out there?
No, I
No,
don't think so.
okay.
That was clearly the intent.
Yeah.
So was to keep it as open space.
I thought the interesting one was, must be boilerplate or whatever, but landing strip?
No, and bug zappers.
Yeah, they're bug
Yeah.
zappers.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just as a way of background, this document went back and forth a couple of times. and our side, and the Land Conservation Trust side. So this is a cooperative document that was put together based on common sense and traditional easements of this type, so.
I'm also gonna add, as we run through that list, no motorized vehicles in there, so, I mean, I think people have, you know, you can take a trail bike and bicycle,
Yeah.
but no motorized vehicles of any kind, including, I think it mentions specifically drones.
Does it?
No, it doesn't. Hang gliders, aircraft, to your point about landing strips, any kind of a mechanized vehicle, it says, shall not be used.
Excellent. Well, at this point, I want to acknowledge the work of David Grigsby and Sarah Williams on, again, Guilford Land Conservation Trust. Thank you for your patience as we work through this process, and I greatly appreciate the work. Pardon me?
And the 25,000.
Well, yes, we mentioned it. And I'd like to, and this bears mentioning, because there's a tall guy in the back of the room there is looking straight at me saying, that money better be going into the land acquisition fund, and that is exactly where we would place those funds, right, Gary?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions on this? No? All right, is there a motion that the public hearing be closed?
Did we open comments from the public? I guess you did,
We-
right?
Yeah.
Nobody?
Any other comments from the public?
Okay.
Dave, come on up,
Yeah.
please.
Grigsby, where do I need to
Yeah,
stand?
right, how about right?
Near the mic would be helpful for.
All right. David Grigsby, I'm president of the Guilford Land Conservation Trust. You pretty much summarized the terms. The intent, the hope, the goal here is that this property continue in its current state, passive recreation. When the disc golf course came up, people were kind of surprised that this was not part of the Westwoods Forest. People perceived it part of the Westwoods Forest.
Right.
The northern access into the Westwoods Forest is through this property. And after that, the disc golf course proposal went away. I thought we should probably do something to make sure that this is the way this property continues. And you know, it does have environmental issues. We don't know what they are, but we are more than willing to pay $25,000 for a conservation easement so that the property remains in its current state.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? No? With that, we'll close the public hearing. Do we need to vote on this at this point? Not yet, okay.
You've already set the.
We already set the hearing, that's right, the town meeting date, which is set for, Trace? December 16th. All right. Thank you. Let's go back to item number 2, and that is to receive the check from the Connecticut Water Company for the Guilford Food Bank. I'd invite Craig Patzla, the Vice President for Service Delivery from Connecticut Water Company, and Tammy DeFrancesco, our Social Services Director. Craig, you just, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you. I appreciate the time on your busy agenda here to present this check from the Connecticut Water Company to the Guilford Food Pantry. It's those folks that are on the front lines doing that good work for those in our communities that need it most. And at this time of year, it seems especially so. So we're proud to be able to present this check to the food pantry, and hope you and know you will put it to good use.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
After we just bought 3 freezers, thank
There
you.
you go. Hopefully that goes a little way towards that.
Thank
So-
you.
So appreciate the time on your agenda, Matt, and congratulations on your 2-year anniversary.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's significant.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks.
So you were in the middle of saying nice things, but you got
You ready?
interrupted.
Yeah, for some reason the power went down there. I don't know why, all of a sudden, and I had to boot everything back up again with the salt we're going now.
We're going, we're live? Okay. As I was saying, I did grow up professionally in an era of corporate largesse, and we don't see as much of that as we used to, where corporations and business entities were supporting their communities that they lived, worked, and had customers in. And Connecticut Water Company has made some significant investments in Guilford over the past year or couple of years, and will continue to do so. I know it's sometimes disrupting as they're running a new water main down Boston Street, but nonetheless, we thank them for their support. And Tammy, I think you can probably find some good use for those funds.
Yeah, most definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone. If I don't
See ya.
see
You too. All right, item 4, which is public forum, general for the meeting. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, approved minutes. The 5.1 is a November 18th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Comments, questions, suggestions?
Good to go.
Good to go?
For me.
All right, I had none as well. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstained, refusals? None. Motion carries. 5.2, November 21st, 2019, special workshop meeting minutes. This was from the presentations on our capital budgets. Any comments or questions, or?
Yes.
With an eight? No. I'll make a motion to approve if we haven't gotten that.
And a second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 6, Kevin, Environmental Planner, Kevin McGee. 6.1 will be to consider and take possible action on the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to execute the bond for the Northern Heights subdivision for landscape completion in the amount of $13,430.
So right now, the subdivision up there is coming pretty good to completion up there. There's some landscaping which has not been completed as part of the project yet, which is being held by the original property owner, developer Brian Ferris, for the amount of $13,430. This bond is a landscape bond for planting of trees along the roadway up in the Northern Heights subdivision there. We like to have that bond called so we can go out for our RFPs for next season to have these trees planted in accordance to the approved plans for the subdivision.
Pam, you want to come up for a minute? This is a little more convoluted than
Yeah.
we'd like it to be,
Yeah.
because of the bankruptcy of the original contractor. The bond was held in their name.
Okay, bankruptcy held everything up.
Well, that's right.
The bond was held in, basically, we have a statement book account with the savings bank with Ferris's name right now.
So when I saw this agenda item, and I remembered there was a lot of complexity to Northern Heights, and there was a bankruptcy, there was also a successor developer. And I'm not sure, you mentioned that the successor developer was to certain parts and not other parts, and I don't really have a handle on
Yep.
that. But in any case, I talked to Chuck Anders, and so we went through it Tuesday, and he advises, for many reasons, to, before you vote to call the bonds, to have a formal letter come out. It's not really, I mean, his first recommendation is from each of the commissions. One is a bond from the planning and zoning, and the other is inland wetlands. So it could, the letters would go out, even though it would just simply, it's like almost a demand letter. We're saying the work hasn't been done, you posted these bonds, we're about to call them, and send them, most importantly, to not only Ferris, and again, it's Brian Ferris individually on one of the bonds, and then this LLC that's probably defunct at this point on the other bond. And then also send a letter to the successor developer, and then just kind of see what happens. Will the developer say, I'm entitled to the proceeds of those bonds? Because we might be putting ourselves in between a claim of the two parties, so we want to flush that out.
Yeah.
They would have to, the successor developer would have to provide evidence of any kind of assignment of those bonds or anything of that sort from when he acquired the property. And then assuming it is, in fact, had not been assigned, then technically what should happen is Kevin ought to get 3 estimates, let's determine what work needs to be done, what's the cost, go through our normal process. And then if the cost is less than the bond, then again, another letter evidencing we would give the extra funds back to the bondholder, someone, correct. So it's kind of a process. So I think today the recommendation from the lawyers is to not vote to execute the bond or to release the bond funds, but rather to send these letters and then to have Kevin come back to you, and then also determine what work needs to be done, what are the estimate for the work, and then you can come back and you can.
Is there any timing issues on the bonds? Do they expire?
They are very wide open. The bonds say that they should be held 2.5 years after the work.
With
But
planting
they're
bonds, they
very
make sure that the tree species and everything else doesn't go bad. You plant a tree, it goes bad, allows you to replant something. That's why we have a 2.5 year beyond the planting date in the bond.
And nothing's been planted, I guess.
Nothing's been planted up there, so we basically need to plant the trees, and the other one,
How
wetlands, is for
close?
vegetation around the stormwater detention ponds there.
How close are we to the 2.5 years?
Oh, we're not, there's nothing been planted yet, so we're
The clock hasn't
still
started
on.
yet.
So the way the bond
Clock
was
is zero.
written was whenever they're planted, it's 2.5 years after.
Oh,
You
so
know-
it's strictly planting of trees that
It's the
is
trigger
the
for
issue.
the 2.5
Yeah,
years.
Okay, everything else in this project is up to speed.
The road got,
6.2 is also.
yeah, the wetlands piece there, but
So there's
but
a
in terms of the
second
rest of the
second part,
subdivision,
right.
the road's been
Yeah.
paved, had the second course of pavement on it. And that whole end of it is, meets what we're looking for, it's just
Okay, so
the planting
we're gonna
portion
write
of
these
it.
letters and you're comfortable that we're not bumping up against any time limits?
Correct,
Correct.
correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, now I may, once we kind of work through this process, it may be that we'll want to accelerate the refunding of the funds in less than the 2.5 years because laws have changed since this, so we'll have to look at that.
If the second developer, the one who took it over after all the issues, just, claims that some of these funds he's entitled to, or is that gonna put us in a position of having to chase him then too?
I will, when we cross that road, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Or cut down that tree. So the thing I don't understand is what claim would the successor developer have if they haven't planted any trees? I mean, if this is a
Well,
bond
if he
specific.
He wants the money.
It's for the
He'll plant.
purchase and planting of the trees, and then
He'll get this money.
the life, and then
He would have to
maintenance.
say, I'm now doing this, or I've even done it.
Well, that's
Therefore,
my
the bond
point.
is-
If that happens, then we have to enter into a new bond agreement. Probably.
Well, the bond is a performance type bond for the project, to make sure the trees are planted and the trees survive 2 years. The trees have not been planted yet, so we're at that first stage of the performance bond of getting the trees planted. Not even worried about the lifespan of the tree afterwards, it's getting the tree planted that hasn't been planted yet as part of the performance
You
bond.
understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
the chain of command, and
Yeah.
we'll worry
Yeah.
about the legalese.
Right,
Right,
and then, I mean, the other part too is, I mean, the timing is why we're here in December, to get through the time period so we can look at planting April, March period, so.
All right,
Or we may still be in court.
I'd like to simplify this in my mind for the successor contractor. Was there a scope of work that they had to comply with to complete this project?
Planning and
Did
zoning
anybody- did-
never got a news or even had an updated subdivision plan come through them or transfer of the subdivision to any,
I'm not
different
sure that
developer.
that is needed, but, that's another legal
Well,
question.
how does the onus fall on the successor developer to do this work if we haven't told them they have to
So
do
the
that
broad
work?
brush, which we're trying to flush out, is, what documentation did the new developer enter into when he purchased the whole thing from Ferris? It could be, and it's very, I would say it's common, that you would assign
Right.
all these you would assign those bonds over to the new developer. He's taking it on and he's stepping in the same shoes as
But you're
Ferris.
assuming that Ferris and the new developer had some agreement where the new developer could have entered into this agreement through bankruptcy.
That's what I'm
Understood.
thinking.
No, absolutely.
They bought it from the
No
bank.
connection of affairs
Absolutely. And
whatsoever.
whatever it is, whether it was something.
So he may just cherry-picked what he wanted to do.
Agreed. We just, the point is, we don't really know.
And that's why we have the bond from the beginning developer to
That doesn't exist anymore.
protect us. I mean, the cash
It does.
bonds, we
The
have,
bond
the money is in
bonds
the,
still
the
exist.
money is in the bank
That's what I'm
which the
trying
town
to
has
say.
access
So
to.
if we're getting into a discussion where the secondary developer, you know, thinks he or she may have some claim to this, you know, we gotta sort this out.
And that's what the purpose of the letter
That's
is.
the
I think
purpose.
that-
Purpose of the letter there,
The purpose of the letter is.
Basically telling them both that these trees need to be planted, and this vegetation regarding around these stormwater detention basins need to be planted. And there's a bond for that, if they don't want, if
And
they
we're
don't
gonna
move
call it,
forward
like, in
with,
60 days, or, you know, whatever it is.
right, if
So
they don't move forward in a
act
certain period of
now or-
time, it's,
Makes sense.
All right, short of sending a demand letter, have any town officials had a conversation with the developer
I had-
about these trees?
Brian Ferris came in about a year ago into our office.
No, I don't mean.
Yeah, we-
I haven't heard from the new one, but Ferris came in because he had the bond originally.
Right.
And he said, either use the money and do the project and complete it,
Yeah.
or I want my money back.
All right,
And this
now,
is what's triggering
My question
the whole
is,
process.
why wouldn't we, in a normal course of events, have approached the new developer and said, are you gonna plant the trees? Have we had
What's
that
going on?
conversation?
Not through my knowledge, I have to check with, I mean, there's been several, Reggie's gone, Aaron's in, I don't think Aaron's fully addressed, praise of this whole situation.
Is there any reason, can we know who the new developer is my question?
I don't even have their name, to tell you the
All
truth. I'm not sure if we have to look at the,
This has gotta get sorted out
I-
because there are so many open.
From
I
the
can get
previous-
that. I have that
from the previous
some-
project there.
Right. May I suggest that someone reach out to the developer and say, are you aware that this is the responsibility of this project, and please move forward with that? Particularly before we decide to spend more money with outside legal opinions to go through this process. We still may need to do that anyway, but just
I
normal
wanna
course of
be
business,
careful
I
on
would
that.
have anticipated someone would have asked the question of the new developer, are you gonna plant the trees? So, we're still, I agree, we'll do the demand letters because we're at a point, but I would think it would make some sense to reach out to the developer, and.
You and I can talk about that, Aaron.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
And without getting too far into the weeds on this thing, Ferris has got some nerve. He goes through bankruptcy and he's looking for some pre-bankruptcy money.
he's been through, I mean, he's basically, I think he wants to close out his accounts that he has
He
within
does,
the.
but I'm sure the trustee would care to know about that.
Yeah.
Agreed. Right, so there's many layers, you know, you got bankruptcy law, you've got the two, so we have to
Right.
just work it through, it's not as simple as just calling the
Okay,
bonds.
so what do we do today with the table is?
So we're gonna,
You're,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's do that.
authorizing the letter, you're saying you're not
Yeah.
ready
Okay, I'll
to
move that.
execute the bonds, and you're.
I'll second it.
Right,
And
Tracy?
then I'll
Letters
second
to
it.
be
We're
issued.
holding off.
Okay, we're doing letters and gathering more information.
Correct,
Good,
But not executing on the bonds.
correct.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
fine. Okay, so is there a motion to, no, I guess that
Don't
that
need
is.
to.
They just-
Yeah.
Second it. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item 7, discuss and take possible action on the Board of Selectmen meeting, 2020 meeting schedule. Charles and Sandy, the consideration, you have a bank meeting that takes
yeah.
place every year and a.
We have one that takes place every month on the third Tuesday of the month, and
Right.
so the two holidays, both Martin Luther King in January and President's Day in February, it makes it necessary to move our meeting, the
Right.
BOS meeting, but I guess I'm requesting, and I didn't discuss this with Charles, but last year we moved, we then have the monthly bank meeting on that third Tuesday, so I'm hoping, and I think Charles agrees with me, that we can have our meeting, the
Yeah.
BOS meeting in the afternoon, and I
Right.
looked it up, and I think last year we did it at 1:00.
Right.
But I'm also, because I'm asking a favor of the rest of the board, if it was a hardship for you in the middle of the day, I'm okay to move it to the night. We just need it off the morning.
Or Wednesday
Right, or
morning.
Wednesday
Yeah, or
morning,
Wednesday
which is a
morning.
good.
Which day is that?
It's the second
We're
February
looking,
meeting.
The February
Wednesday morning
18th?
in February wouldn't
What?
work for me, though.
Okay.
It would for January, but not for
We're just away the second April meeting every year, but that's, that's life.
On
Go away.
with the February
hard.
2nd, the second meeting in
It'd be a
February, the
challenge.
same date that you were pointing out, that's actually a school vacation time, that second one, because the schools close for the holiday and the next day as well. So, all things being equal, I'd like to have that on a different day too, just make it possible for more people to attend.
So are we saying Wednesday, the 19th instead of?
Let's do
Sandy King.
January first, all right?
Oh.
So January, instead of having it the morning of the 21st, which is what is indicated here, I'm requesting that it be moved to the afternoon or some other time, just not the morning.
Do we want to try, do we want to try an evening meeting? We haven't done one in a long
I think
time.
that's a good idea.
Let's see what kind of attendance we get, see if it draws more. Okay. 7:30?
Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Works.
Should we anticipate a larger meeting room or no?
Last time we had one public hearing, zero.
Yeah,
I mean, literally zero.
I mean, we
At a
get
public
a
hearing.
dozen folks in here beyond what we normally have beyond staff.
Yeah, the issue always was with evening meetings was staff.
That's
Staff, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
right.
That's the issue. I mean,
Okay, so 7:30 on the 21st, right?
So just to think that point through, which I hadn't considered, I mean, is like 4 o'clock any better, or is that too disruptive?
I don't
for
think,
work?
I don't think that
doesn't
allows the
help
public,
the
doesn't allow
public.
the public to show
Yeah.
up, so.
So no matter how you do it, somebody gets paid. Okay,
So,
that's fine. I mean, but believe me, the evening's better for me.
And so,
Same here.
in February, it's the same thing, the President's Day is Monday, so the bank meeting is in the morning of the 18th, and if you move it to the 19th, I can't come. I'm not saying we shouldn't move it to the
Right.
19th, but I'm not able to. If you move it to the afternoon or evening of the 18th, I'm fine with it. But, you know, last year we had it during that
same week, yeah.
school vacation. That's short vacation, I mean,
It's the 2 days.
It's
So
those
that's
2
the
days,
second of
yeah.
2 days.
Yeah.
How about the Friday before?
What is it?
Instead of doing it
it's
after,
just
how
a
about doing it
4-day
before?
school vacation.
Yeah, Mitch has
The
something.
January meeting, the Board of Finance also gonna have to move from Monday to Tuesday at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so we can't have it at night in
Can we-
January?
Could we do
Third,
it
can't have it
earlier?
on the
Do it
third
before?
Monday everywhere, that's right, good point. We've done it in the past, but.
Last year, we did it at 1 o'clock on
Let's just
Tuesday.
do it at 1,
1
it's
o'clock.
easier
Yeah.
over
I mean, we
there.
can do another night meeting at some other time, you know, I think once in a while.
Right,
it's-
and that also presents a challenge, because if there's any, for the February meeting, because if we have our meeting, the Board of Finance will have their meeting on the 18th in the evening. So if there's any action that we need to take to forward along to
Yeah, that's
them.
where we should be before.
So-
We'll just do it at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock on the 18th.
Okay,
Okay,
Sorry, Sue.
that's fine.
but we'll keep in mind that I think every once in a while we should have a night meeting, but it
Agreed.
just isn't gonna work in this particular,
Well, we're
I
setting
mean,
the
maybe to Lou's
schedule.
point, doing a 3 or 4 o'clock makes some sense. I mean,
I don't know.
people gonna break up their day for some reason, you know, it's easier to break up the
It's-
day
At the end.
before the day or at the end of the day, rather than the middle.
It is easier for me personally to do it later in the
Okay.
day,
3,
so. And
4
it-
o'clock, 3:30.
4 o'clock,
Four.
if that
4
works.
o'clock?
That's fine.
Yeah.
We talking about a specific day?
On the 18th?
Sure.
18th of
Yeah.
February,
Yeah.
4 PM.
Yeah, it is better.
Sure.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And if we do want to try an evening meeting, this is the time to choose one. We can choose any
Yeah.
of them. I guess with the first meeting of the month involve less staff, because we don't have the
Yeah,
financial.
we don't have the financials,
stuff.
that's right.
Yeah.
My problem with evening meetings, you know, we did them for years in the beginning there because we thought we would get more public participation, but we didn't get more public, number one. And then our experience at that last public hearing just kind of underlined it for me that, you know, if somebody wants to talk to us, they'll talk to us. But I don't have anything against trying one again.
We want
just
to,
to-
I think January,
I think
January might be a little quick for that word to get out, but
Maybe during budget season would be a good time,
Fr-
because
and I
that'll
think
give
it-
people something to talk about
Yeah.
and things like that.
um,
You know, later in the year, like, you know, March, April, when we're doing
Yeah.
the budget cycle.
why don't we look at the overall schedule, the budget schedule, the Board of Finance, because there's public meetings, and then there's the public hearing, excuse me, the Board of Finance's public hearing on the budget, and then their workshops. So let's see what works for possibly the March meeting.
Good.
All right?
Okay.
Good, thank you. Is there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second.
I call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none. Motion carries.
January's at night?
What's that?
Can you recap those two changes?
February 18th at 4 PM and January 21st at 1 PM.
Here we go.
Item 8, appointments and resignations. 8.1 is to act on a resignation received from Dick Reynolds from the Safe Streets Task Force. Is there a motion?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
We
We have some other
skipped
items.
over vehicle policy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was an addition.
I'm sorry, that's right.
Chief Hutchinson
Yep.
is sitting here patiently.
Well, maybe not patient. All right, item 8, consider and take possible action on the revised vehicle policy. Mitch?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Good morning, deja vu.
There you go.
We're back with the vehicle uses policy, which you passed last time. After going through this extensively and getting it out to all the employees, we had several comments that came back and concerns, which we've now addressed and brought back to you with revisions. The first had to do with the police and fire department have their own policies concerning vehicle usage, which have been very successful over the years and are codified. So we have basically excluded police and fire from this overall policy for that reason. The second change has to do with motorcycles. It was pointed out, and Lou, you pointed this out last time, you had a concern, but there are some people that do have motorcycles as their personal vehicles. And if they do go to a conference or somewhere on their personal vehicle and have the proper insurance that we have outlined in this policy, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to take a motorcycle for personal purposes. The third point was the pulling of trailers. It was quickly pointed out to us that the way the policy was listed, that you couldn't pull a trailer, not thinking about the fact that Public Works, Park and Rec, the transfer station and golf course all use vehicles to pull trailers. So we took those out. Pam and I worked on the changes that you have before you. I've also consulted with our insurance agent, H.D. Seeger, who I went through each of these changes with and had no real problems with them. They said some of them were just recommended, but it's really just, it's personal preference of the municipality.
They
He
had no
understood.
particular input on town use of a motorcycle.
Their overall recommendation originally was to exclude that, but when I explained to him what the issue was, he said that wasn't, he says that's your, there's no, you know, motorcycles by nature might be more dangerous than a vehicle for a person.
What was our issue?
The issue was just it was recommended just not to have motorcycles listed as a personal vehicle
From an insurance.
from an insurance
I
standpoint.
mean, that's kind of like corporate, I mean, that's pretty standard. Motorcycles
when I
are not
mentioned-
allowed on company time.
But when I mentioned to him the issue, he didn't have a big problem with it. He said, "That's fine. That's your prerogative." You know, remember the person who's driving a motorcycle for their personal business, their personal insurance is going to pick up the original.
But the minute it goes into, you know, town, if they're going someplace on their motorcycle on town business, it's a town problem at that point. It's not their insurance, because they're gonna go to the deepest well, and the town's the deepest well.
Well, we've already found, I don't know where Pam was here. We had an issue where this happened with a personal vehicle, and part of the reason for putting together this policy in the first place is letting individuals know when they use their personal vehicle, it is their personal insurance policy that is.
Well, that's
that-
fine, and you gotta make that paper step, but
Yeah.
the reality of our system is they're going to go to the deepest well, and the town's gonna be the deepest well, and I am surprised that motorcycle, they didn't
Charlie,
have a
what-
bigger issue with
I'm curious
motorcycles.
what you see, so the issue would be if an employee gets hurt in the course of their employment on a motorcycle, right? Is that your concern?
They're going to a meeting on their motorcycle.
Right, and they got hurt and they're on town, they're in the course of their duties, they would have a workers' comp claim. So deep well doesn't necessarily apply. Now, the workers' comp folks might be heard from, but it's not gonna create any additional liability for the town beyond that. The bigger concern from the outside world is if a town vehicle injures non-employees,
Yeah.
which isn't really dramatically affected by this, other than things like, pulling a trailer, which I presume makes driving a vehicle harder, but I mean, we have professionals, so,
Part of the job,
yeah.
I surprised, I mean, you just kind of, I always thought it was kind of standard that,
Well, which is probably why it was recommended in the first place that way. But then, when it was brought to our attention that certain people do drive motorcycles to work, when it's not inclement weather, obviously, and if they were asked to go, it's probably a rare occasion anyway, so if they were asked to go somewhere and they had to or wanted to take their own vehicle following the policy, as long as they had the insurance, then it would be, covered just like anybody else.
as long as you have it in writing from our insurers that they think it's a good idea.
Well, I didn't say it was a good idea. They said they were okay with it. Their original recommendation was not to do that. They're also,
What made them change their original recommendation?
the fact that we spoke to them and said we have people that have this situation.
Well, fine, we have people and we have insurance experts, and we chose, not to, abide by the people we paid to give us advice.
Well, there were a lot of other things, Charles, that were in this policy recommended from H.D. Seeger originally. Okay, Pam and I sat down with the representative from H.D. Seeger and made many changes. Not, motorcycles was one we didn't change originally. We made a number of changes based on, first of all, what they were using was a very overreaching situation. We used the situations that affect us as a municipality and the town of Guilford. And we came up with, went through each of those issues, and one by one knocked off a number of things that were very restrictive or made no sense in our situation. This is one that went through, and we thought it was okay till we put the policy out and we got some pushback from certain employees. So, and Pam and I discussed it with the representative and said, that's your prerogative. That's your prerogative as a board. If you decide not to do it, if you want to strike it back out, we strike it back out. Then we end up with a personnel situation. If somebody is going to asked to go somewhere during the day.
In situations in the past, not necessarily having to do with vehicles, sometimes there's been changes made to policies and benefits where people that enjoyed the right to something were grandfather or grandperson into it. But going forward, any new employees would be informed from the start that personal vehicles don't include motorcycles. I mean, then you'd be
In this case,
narrowing it down. I don't know.
No,
I'm just
in this
trying to
case,
think
it's
of
you
it.
one or the other, Sandy. I believe it should be one or the other. Either you allow it or you don't. I think it's a rare occasion, first of all. Most of the people that I heard from were people who don't usually go to conferences or usually would be taking a town vehicle anyway. In that rare occasion, do we say to somebody, we need you to go from here to there, maybe just to the fire department or police department, and there's not a vehicle available or something, and we say, I can't go, I brought my motorcycle today. I mean, do we want to be in that kind of situation? I don't know.
I'd rather be in that situation
Alright.
than, I'm surprised that it's,
About how many-
we have experts that we pay to protect our risk,
Yeah.
and then we ignore them to just, I don't, doesn't make sense.
How many employees at this moment are we talking about, do you think,
I don't
approximately?
know, I would guess only half a dozen or so. I don't think it's that many.
The real question is how many employees use motorcycles as their only means of transportation? If
They
you know you have to,
don't.
if you know you gotta go to a conference, and you,
True.
right?
That's true. On the other hand, if it's something that comes up during the day,
Okay.
does that person then say, I can't go, I got my motorcycle today, therefore I can't go?
Or
I mean, is it,
someone makes a vehicle available to them, right?
So as things stand, there
well,
are
remember,
some.
excuse me,
Sorry,
Lou.
sorry.
The first line of defense is that a vehicle is available.
Right.
Because we're not, setting this up so that we're not using town vehicles. We use town vehicles, most of the time, for sure. As Matt says, it could be something where someone's going to a conference the next day, or training. We ask them to go from home, because it makes more sense. The training starts at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Are we gonna say you can't take the motorcycle? We could, obviously, but.
So I understand it, and to Charles' point a little bit, as things stand, people are perfectly entitled to commute to work and back home on their own time on a motorcycle if that's their personal choice.
That's correct.
This does not restrict that. During the day, if for some reason there's some official duty that requires them to go from one place to another, and they happen to be on their vehicle, personal vehicle available to them as a motorcycle, if we restrict that, there is very often a town vehicle that they could either use or carpool, or, I mean, how often are we talking about?
We're probably talking a very rare occasion, and my point is the fact that if somebody has to go somewhere during the day, the first thing they would do is take a town vehicle.
So,
This is the line of last defense, really.
if we wanted to be safer and safest, we could say, listen, we don't want to lift that prohibition. I mean, that's why it's gotta come here and get digested a little bit, and if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
bothering somebody.
It's whatever your choice is. I mean, we just put it, like I said, we got pushback in a few different areas, and those areas we thought about, and we've made the requisite changes to it. But it's obviously your decision. If you want to remove the motorcycles back out, we'll move it back out. If you want to leave it the way it's been proposed, it's certainly your decision.
Neither HTC or Kermit, did they weigh in on any potential impacts to our policies and what our policy costs are if we have the motorcycle in or out?
No, there was no indication at all to be any
So
difference at all.
there's no financial issue?
No.
All right.
My 2 cents, we don't talk about the kind of car or truck someone would be driving. Why would we get into the weeds on whether or not it's a motorcycle? But I would like to suggest if we do leave motorcycle in, we should add under safety where we say that seatbelts are required. I would throw helmets in there personally.
Seatbelts are a law and helmets aren't. I don't know if that gets,
Astonishingly.
I would,
I know. I mean,
Well,
I
we-
agree with you, I'm just,
yeah.
I didn't think this was a big deal, but I kinda side with Charles.
Right.
I kinda side with Charles. It affects so few people, and if they're asked to drive, if it's a conference, they're already gonna have made a plan, you know, pretty much. We're only talking about local errands, and maybe somebody else in the office does it, or waits until the next day, or, I don't know.
I could agree.
Because I could see a member of the public saying, okay, a town employee had an accident and they were driving on a motorcycle. I mean, like, why are we even
That's
setting
when
ourselves
accidents
up?
happen, it's that quick little ride and just jump on and go. I just look at it from the corporate world. In the corporate world, you can't even drive, a certain level of employment, you can't even drive them to work.
I'm never been made aware of that, but okay. If you say so.
Those are probably personal contracts, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. No risk. I'm fine with leaving the use of motorcycles as personal vehicles is prohibited.
Prohibited, okay.
But I would change that to the use of motorcycles as personal vehicles for town business, even though it's in that section.
Gotcha.
So
Right.
remind me what you're saying? Are you saying what
They
Charles
can-
is
they
saying?
can
Yeah.
drive-
Go back to the
They
original.
can drive it.
Back to
they
the
can
original.
Travel to work
They can
back and
commute.
forth.
They can,
Right.
we're not telling people what they can commute in.
Exactly.
But if, once they're on town business,
That's a
they're
good
not using a
suggestion.
Right.
motorcycle.
That's a good suggestion. So,
It feels like that's kind of the.
so I know you haven't made a motion yet, but my understanding, what you'd like to do is to remove the word motorcycles from the first paragraph and go back to where it's Xed out under item E and have it read use of motorcycles as personal vehicles for town, adding the words for town business is prohibited.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
Yep.
what Matt was suggesting, so.
So take
That's the way that
motorcycles-
seems to me to be the reasonable.
motorcycles
People
out
do what they
there.
want on their own time.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
All right.
So if that's a motion from Charles, I'll
Chad
second
Smart,
that.
second, okay. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mitch, for winding your way through the language.
Hopefully I'm not back with this one anytime soon again.
So we're not taking motorcycles to the conference tomorrow?
No.
Only,
Only
Weather
for driving.
holds, and you have your helmet ready.
item 9, Police Department.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chief, how are you today?
Excellent.
All right.
Everybody had a good holiday.
Oh, we did,
Great.
we did.
So we are presented with the need to replace a supervisory position. When we do that, we have tests. We've budgeted for that every year in anticipation of that possibility. What we're looking for today is, and this has went to the police commission at their last meeting. The vendor that we're looking to use is a different one that we've been using in the department for the last 20-something years. And so we're revamping the process. Part of it has to do with our accreditation and the needs for that. So the vendor badge quest has some specific abilities that none of the other vendors that we've looked at have. It costs more than what we budgeted, and it's over the $7,500 threshold. So what I'm looking to do is waive the bid process and approve Badge Quest Inc. to run our testing process at the cost of $13,400.
Questions?
What will they do that you weren't expecting?
So they have, they're doing a job task analysis on the position that we're testing for from a testing procedure. They have appeals processes at both the written and the assessment center level. And the testers that they're using are all, so when we do an assessment center, they bring in a group of people. It's basically, they run a full-day assessment center on the candidates. They're gonna be either at chief or deputy chief level, the ones that are running it. In the past, it's been only one position above, and this place can guarantee that. And they're actually paid participants, where in the past, it's been the vendor that we used would kind of send a letter out, hey, anybody available to volunteer for this? So they're not really,
Oh.
yeah,
They're not certified.
they're not certified testing, and it's a little more well thought out, prepared, professional. And when we're talking about what we're doing here, we're putting someone in place that could be not just first supervisory level, but could be moving up. And it's a long-term investment in the organization, so I'd request that be approved.
Yeah.
So do I understand this when it says written exam and assessment center? So they do background checks, they really vet people?
The background check, they don't do.
Okay,
No,
interesting. So what is the assessment?
The assessment is as I described before, so they do a full-day assessment on every candidate.
Okay.
And that's conducted by the vendor with the assistance of the
So
paid.
for suitability for the job?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we've already done our backgrounds.
Makes sense.
Anything further? Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Chief, good luck. I assume you'll be executing that agreement quickly, so you wanna get the process
I'm
rolling?
running back. We've been with that one for a while, so. Thank you.
You got it. All right, item 10, act on resignation received from Dick Reynolds from the Safe Streets Task Force. I'll make that recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Charlie, item 9.
Well, it's a strange one because we got Ray Bauer in there first.
Yeah, that should have been under 10.
Yeah.
I don't mind, mine says.
Well, I mean, that's actually even different
Yeah.
than appointment to resident, but it's a pension committee. I mean, I'd like to make that motion.
Right.
But
Let's
I
make
mean,
that 10A,
Yeah,
appointment.
and I'll move it.
All right. I'll second that. Ray has been an outstanding member of the pension committee for, I think this is his second go-around. He was actually the chair of the pension committee for a while. Bob Hartman's ascension to the Board of Finance left a vacancy in terms of the chair. He was actually the vice chair. I've had the conversation with Ray. He will serve until such time as we have a full complement on that board, and the board comes up with a recommendation for a replacement at an appropriate point. So, call the question.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Good.
Okay, now I
Now
can
we're
go
on to
into
Charlie, here you go.
town property. Request from the Guilford Arts Center to use the screen.
Well, this had this issue
Yeah,
with the
this is,
Gavel.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
this is a little bigger project.
Why don't we do that last and do the other one, do the other?
Okay.
do the other three.
Do
All
the
right,
size.
Four.
Number 3, Boy Scouts Troop 471, the sign on the green, Christmas tree recycling, the 4th through the 11th, and Shabbatovich place Hanukkah menorah on the green from December 18th through the 2nd, and same for sign on the green for their Jewish festival from the August 2nd. Wow, August to July. And then Christ Episcopal Church to place a sign on the green advertising the chili supper for December 6th. And I'll move those.
Yeah, the only clarification there is that I think the Shabbat, I can't say that word, but Lubavitch is actually use of the green as well. And they have a detailed permission for use, and it doesn't seem to be anything controversial.
For the festival, yeah.
Yeah, so that's in,
Which is a
Second.
repeat of
August
things,
2nd.
yeah.
And then the
yeah,
sign
so
is-
it's a sign and then a
Sign,
use
right.
of the green as well.
Right.
But I would just
Yeah.
lump that in, because I
Yeah.
mean, it seems to me a pretty straightforward request.
Yeah, just comment the agenda item in parentheses at the bottom of number 5, the sign placement is through August 2nd, not 20th.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. There's a motion, is there a second?
Oh, chili supper.
Chili
Did
supper,
you
right?
mention that one?
Chili supper.
You did, you did.
Okay.
All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.1, remove from the table and act on request from the Guilford Arts Center for the annual special permissions during the use of the green for Craft Expo 2020, as well as the request to waive section 214-2A of the town code to allow the serving of beer and wine during the event as part of the food court. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion
And a
to
second.
remove it from the table.
And a second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. We are also in receipt of a letter from Chief Hutchinson, who, as part of the annual process to review unfortunately he left, but to review the activities around that event in compliance with the conditions. And once again, they've indicated that there were no problems identified at all with the execution of the conditions.
Because the Art Center people had come here about, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, and I believe I was the one who said, did you get the required police blessing? And they hadn't, so
We have it. We have it.
so that's why they're back. And-
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And they're not suggesting doing anything differently
No.
from what they did last year at all, so
Right.
that seemed to work fine.
All right, so we have a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Okay, item 10, committee reports. Sam?
No,
Nothing
we're-
yet?
Nothing yet, I hope
Okay.
soon.
Anybody with correspondence?
No.
Old business? New business? Public forum? With that?
Sandy, all those meeting dates for public hearings and everything for the housing are all kind of,
Yes,
On
I'm
the
sorry, I
side,
thought.
yeah. Yeah, you did. I
I
just wanna
reported
make
on
sure.
that, you know, but yes, it's
We
still
have no
going to
new dates.
happen, it's not,
okay.
it wasn't ready.
The
but
trigger is the contract.
Yes, and it's still, there was still some issues with the
Okay,
contract.
I just
but-
want to plug them in.
I know,
ones
I'd
that
love to plug them in myself, but,
Okay.
the only meeting I can tell you that is definitely gonna happen is, another, public information about the whole project at the, library on Monday, January 13th. We're gonna have that no matter where we are
In
in
the
the process, so, that's set, but all the other dates are still.
I mean, my understanding is the glitches are legalese, not fundamental to.
Conceptual.
the
As far as I
project.
know, yes. Yes,
There are some changes at the Department of Housing. There's a new commissioner of housing, so the process
Yeah.
is sort of in transition, and that's held up part of this as well.
yeah.
Fundamental.
But fundamentals,
There's no substantial, substantive diversion from the
not that we're aware of.
trajectory.
Not that we're aware of.
No.
Okay, which is,
No substantial diversion from the trajectory.
that was over, I didn't mean it to come out that way, but
Wow.
I'm tired already.
That's the landing strip.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. No one in public forum? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you all.
Great, is that